Our artistic director, Matthew Wright, said that he knew you back in Philadelphia days.
Yes, years ago. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember seeing a production that he made music for of the play Marat Sade. I remember that when we were both very, very young Philadelphians.
Thank you so much for making time for us today. Could you tell us a little bit about your inspiration for Penelope and how it transformed from a concept album into a musical?
So I started writing Penelope, as you say, as an album of songs, and that project began during the quarantine months of the COVID pandemic. When the pandemic hit, I was in a long distance relationship. I was with someone who was in grad school in Boston, and I was still living in Philadelphia at the time. And so for the first couple months of the pandemic, we were forced to quarantine in separate cities. And so while that was going on, all of these songs started showing up for me at the piano from the point of view of Penelope from the Odyssey. And so as those months went on, I continued to sort of write into this point of view, and it was a really wonderful project for me and a useful container for a lot of my sort of like uh, curiosity and fear and longing and grief and the worry that I wasn't going to see this person that I loved very much, but also the worry that I maybe was never going to be able to do live theater and live performance. And so wrote that and made it into an album that I released um, on my Bandcamp and put on Spotify, and sort of felt that that was going to be it. But then after the album was out there in the world, more music kept showing up for me. And so I reached out to my friend and my frequent collaborator, Eva Steinmetz, who I had collaborated with on a musical called The Appointment that I made with Lightning Rod Special and other things over the years. And we started thinking about how to expand these songs that I had written in this album into a show because at the time, live theater was starting to come back. And so it started to seem possible. And so we did a couple of rounds of workshops at a new work incubator called the Orchard Project, which is an incredible place to work on new performance of many kinds. And it was during those Orchard Project workshops that we asked Grace McLean, who is, we were trying to think of a performer who could help us perform some of these songs. We wanted to do a sort of work in progress concert showing. And we reached out to Grace, and she, yeah, enthusiastically agreed to do it. And then in the working with Grace, we decided to sort of all three of us create the book together, the script of the musical together. And it's been growing and changing and finding its shape ever since then. Um, but yeah, that's sort of where the idea came from and then how it progressed over the years.
And now that Penelope's celebrated over five different productions, what has it been like to see a piece that you created that's so personal to you go on to have another life in these other iterations?
It's been wild. It's been really amazing. I think the thing that I'm most surprised by and also really excited by is that because it's a solo musical, because it's just one actor holding the space for the entire show, um, the every time I've seen a new production of the show with a new actor in the role, it has felt so theirs. Like it really feels like it belongs to this one. This whoever that actor is performing the show, while it still feels like the show is itself, it retains that feeling of these things that I was writing about while I was moving through it and writing the show. And so it's been so exciting to see just totally different takes on that human being, and I feel like the writing just rises up to meet each new person, and so I that's been really cool.
Yeah, I love that. It's so rewarding when you write something personal and then it connects with other people. And I think that's the beauty. The beauty of theater is just being like, oh, I'm not alone. And even though your story is different from mine, we're so close to each other. And I really love that.
Yeah, I've been really gratified and really moved to see that people have connected with the show on a personal level in many different ways. I mean, there was one person who I talked to outside of the theater and when we were doing it in Washington D.C. who was going through a long distance breakup, and so she had seen the show a couple times because it really spoke to her, and I thought that was amazing. But then I've also spoken with people who, women who have been married to people who are in the military who say that the show has really spoken to them and their experience, and also just people who know what it is to, in many different ways, be separate from something or someone that they love and are waiting to see if they will be reunited. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And how has this process been different from other pieces that you've been a part of developing from the beginning?
Mostly, I think the thing that's been different about it is that a lot of the time when you're making a musical, there are certain structural things that you're thinking about a lot throughout.
Mhm.
And with this, we were really just trying to follow the lead of the music itself, to take something that really began as a music project for me, and in the translation of it into theater, ask questions like, well, what is the music telling us to do? How do we follow that lead? That was really interesting. And then the other thing that I think is really unique is that the source material, in a way, beyond the Odyssey, which is the obvious source material, but the source material for the theater show is that album I made, and that album I made
Mhm.
is very atmospheric and very soft and quite melancholy and moody. And then when you turn it into a play, you're like, well, we can't just be sad for 90 minutes. There has to be, where is the humor, where is the playfulness, where is the irreverence, how do you find something dynamic? And what was fun then was to dive into a creation process to expand away from the first couple of songs I had written for the album and say, like, okay, there is humor in it. There's a lot of humor in it, actually. There is surprise, and we do pull the rug out from the audience every once in a while and give them something to to shake up the energy of the piece so that it's not just, as I say, 90 minutes of people crying.
Yeah, I love having listened to the musical in its entirety and going back and listening to your concept album. I totally hear what you're saying. They hold so much space in their own, but it's beautiful to see the way that you expanded that world and then added the theatricality of different sort of music styles and the peaks and valleys of the storytelling. It's really beautiful. Yeah.
Thanks.
So at Arts West, we have a history of programming kind of non-traditional holiday shows in our holiday spots. We've done Peter and the Starcatcher, Jane Eyre the musical, and Head Over Heels. And what we fell in love with Penelope is the soaring score and the heartfelt storytelling. I love the nuance that your writing team found in Penelope's Waiting, because it's not just a play about a woman pining for her husband. It's this woman who finds a lot of strength and is really questioning if where she is at present is where she's meant to be. And then looking into the Odyssey, the idea that unbeknownst to her, Odysseus is trying to come back to her as well when she thinks he's just away and gallivanting. So I think there's a lot of hope that's built into that storytelling. What made you fall in love with Penelope?
That's a good question. What's interesting to me is that I didn't really have intense or close relationship with the Odyssey before I started writing this project. I had read it in school. I'd read the Iliad and the Odyssey, and had, copies on my bookshelf. Um, and I had read a couple of the sort of contemporary takes on the Odyssey and contemporary takes on Penelope's character, like Margaret Atwood's Penelopiad and Madeline Miller's Circe and Song of Achilles and those kinds of books. But if you had asked me, 6 months before the pandemic hit, if I would be interested in writing an adaptation of the Odyssey as a musical, I probably would have said no. It wouldn't have occurred to me. But what I find really interesting is that while I was going through a really personal experience, that character sort of leapt to mind really readily and really quickly. Um, and so the thing that I find really compelling is that it it just sort of was there for me. And I think I talk about this a lot where the show is concerned that, the classics, I think that they're really worth continuing to invest in, not because they are classic or because we deem them quote unquote important, but because we still identify with them really fundamentally. I was going through a really intense human experience, and I reached out for something to help me process that. And that character was within arm's reach. And then I dove back into that source material and tried to illuminate things that really spoke to that experience of mine. And it was really there. And so I think there is something about, especially the characters like Penelope in the Odyssey, who have so much mystery attached to them because the original source material is not terribly explicit about their experience. There's not that much about Penelope in the Odyssey. And I think that's one of the reasons why so many people over the years have been so drawn to writing into the space between the lines where we could help sort of flesh out her experience or allow her experience to be a mirror for ours. Yeah, I think that that's probably what drew me to the character was feeling like I was experiencing something akin to what I believe she had been experiencing in the story, and then letting that be a motor for the creative process.
My last question is there anything that you hope audiences walk away with from Penelope or things that you hope people experience in Penelope?
Yeah. Well, part of my hope with the show is that if you are someone who loves Greek mythology, you can go and feel like you have a couple little delightful nerdy things that you're picking up on that no one else is. But also, if you're someone who's never read the Odyssey and doesn't know anything about it, you really don't have to in order to like the show. But the other thing that I really value about the show, which I think makes it different from a lot of musicals, is there are a lot of points in Penelope where everything sort of slows down and we invite the audience to step into a place of reflection. We basically say there's nothing much going on stage right now except for the string trio is playing this piece of instrumental music. So listen to it and see what it makes you feel or what it makes you think of. And I think that's really a special thing about this show is that I think it's rare that musical theater cultivates an experience of reflection and meditation. It's most often it very rarely stops musical theater in order to let you reflect. But I think this piece really does. And so I always get excited to see how audiences receive that and what it does for them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really exciting here at ArtsWest too, because we are a theater that's in the thrust. And typically, when we do bigger musicals, we have a live band, but we actually have them in our rehearsal hall downstairs, and then a video monitor and pipe it in. And it's so exciting that for Penelope, she's joined on stage with 5 live musicians. And we're transforming the space to have cabaret tables around her as well as the seats on 3 sides. So she'll be able to really connect with audiences up close. You feel like you are just like sitting with her and listening to her thoughts and transforming the space in that way, where the performer can really have that intimate relationship with the audience and the audience can feel that as well. It's really exciting.
That's so exciting. And one of the other things that I find to be sort of really elemental to this show is the experience of audiences getting to be very close to incredible musicians playing music live. that feels more and more rare in musical theater, actually, because of the way that performance spaces are designed, and because of shifting, realities of style and budget and all those things. Very often, your band is sort of either, as you say, downstairs or in another room or behind a thing, and you don't get to see them make this music. But that's really the point of a lot of Penelope, is getting to see really incredible instrumentalists play their instruments and sharing space with that. So that's super exciting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining
thank
me
you.
today.
Yeah.